Then asked whether or not he would kowtow, just to paraphrase the words that were used by Senator Durbin. He said, "I would not be bullied." Went on to say, by the president, by a newspaper, by a corporation, by anyone.
Barr saying, "My allegiance will be to the rule of law, the Constitution, and the American people. This is how it should be. This is how it must be. And if you confirm me, this is how it will be." Someone who knows a lot about that, Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus. Professor, thank you for joining us. America's Newsroom. We continue coverage on Capitol Hill here. What do you think of what you have heard so far?
Well, it's a home run so far. I think the goal at this point is to get a unanimous committee vote. Even the Democrats who were critical and raised questions seem to be satisfied with his answers. The 18-page memo is a brilliant memo and is absolutely correct on the constitutional law. And he assured the members of the committee that although the Constitution gives the president the authority to fire Comey, to do whatever else the Constitution authorizes the president to do, that the president would, however, be violating his constitutional obligation to see that the laws are enforced if he acted in a self-serving way. So I think he's given all the right answers. The majority, of course, will vote him in, but I think there's a substantial chance that some Democrats, maybe all the Democrats,
very interesting,
would and should join.
Why is it that
unanimity would be a very good thing at this point?
He was his first confirmation hearing for AG was 27 years ago, and here he is yet again. He referred to that a couple times. Why would a former AG craft a memo like that this past summer?
Well, it was the right thing to do. He felt very strongly, as I did. His memo parallels what I've been saying for years and what I put in two of my own books, that it would be a terrible mistake to investigate a president for obstruction of justice for performing his constitutional duty, namely to fire the director of the FBI, or, as he previously did when he was AG, recommend the pardoning of Caspar Weinberger and 5 other people. He had committed himself already to that as the AG for the first President Bush. So obviously he feels strongly, as I feel strongly, that a president is not above the law. It is the law under Article 2 of the Constitution that the president may pardon and may fire, and you can't both engage in constitutionally protected activities and also be guilty of a crime. That would raise serious problems. So I think he did the right thing. He sent it to the right people, to the Deputy Attorney General and lawyers within the department, because he wanted to make sure that they didn't go down a path that he thought would disserve the rule of law in the interest of the United States. So I think he's explained that very satisfactorily and effectively, maybe not to the satisfaction of all the Democrats on the committee. But look, this is a time where bipartisan support would be so important. If he got confirmed unanimously or near unanimously, this would be one of the first times since the election that we've seen bipartisan support for somebody who deserves bipartisan support, because he performed with great distinction as Attorney General. And between that time and this time, he's been a lawyer's lawyer.
Thank you, sir. Alan Dershowitz, observations there.